In part two of Robert Dunn's story, we're going to talk about the New Zealand Cup with Mainland Banner, the outstanding trotter Sundy's son and Sundy's sister who's delivered at Group 1 level in recent times. And what about those two boys of his? Dexter, 10-time premiership winner and now 3-time USTA Driver of the Year, and John, who's a massive part of his stable and an accomplished reinsman in his own right. Hey, you got your cup.
Yeah,
got
the
cup. And you mentioned before Ian Dobson, and he's played a big part.
Yeah, he got me going again. Yep. Got Mainland Banner, and you know that was a story and a half in itself. And then with old Dennis O'Reilly yelling out to me, you know, nearly didn't stop. It was the end of the.
It's just the luck sometimes, isn't it?
Well, I'll tell you what, you wouldn't believe it. I said to the boys, we used to always get pies and drinks at the Methven trials. We used to go every Saturday or Sunday to Methven. But I said to Johnny, I said, I'm just going to shoot across here and get the pies. I've got them ordered. And ran across, and old Den yelled out, he said, Rob, he said, you want to buy a horse? So I slammed the brakes on. I said, what is it, Den? He said, there's a horse here, come and have a look at it. So I looked at it, I said, yeah, it's a good looking horse.
You got his voice down, Pat.
Yeah. And I said, what is it? He said, it's by Christian Cullen. And I said, oh yeah? I said, geez, a big, what is it? How old is it? He said, it's 3. And anyway, I said, who owns it? He said, Ian Sowden. He said, come meet him. And I said, oh, look, get the pies and the bloody drinks over there. I said, go and get a price on it for me. So I shot across, and when I came back with the drinks and pies, and he said, no, he said, he won't sell it. And he said, I said, I'm coming around the back of the fight, going off from 60 grand. So anyway, I'm driving. I said, if you think it's that good. So I pulled up and he comes out, he said, no, come and meet him. He said, he won't sell it, but he said, you got first. So I jumped out of the bloody truck, met him, and he said, look, I want to qualify it first. But he said, I'll give you a first offer. So anyway, he said, it's going to the workouts on Tuesday at Ashburton. And I said, look, I can't make it, but I knew I would. And I said, can't make it, but I said, I'll ring you after the races. So I shoot down there, and Carl Markham drove him. Only 3 in the trial, but it looked stupid to me. So I rang up Sharky that night and I said to Sharky, how'd it go? He said, oh, look, he said, there's your first offer, but I haven't got a price, I want to qualify him. I said, good as gold, when are you going to do it? He said, next Tuesday at Rangiora. So I said, right. I said, oh, well, I can be there. Well, bugger me there, got beat by a useless horse of Mark Smolensky who's never won a race. Colin DeFilippe drove it. So I went up to CJ and I said to CJ, Tim Butt sniffing around the source, mates, I've got to make a decision real quick. I said, I haven't got a price yet, what do you think? And he said, well, I think it's going to be a dear price, Rob, because it's a good horse, buy it. So that, I said, you got beat? Yeah, I said, you got beat? He said, yeah, I know, buy it. So I went to Sharky and said, listen, we need a price. So we set the price at 110 and anyway.
So did you go to Dobby? Is that
100k? No, there's a story. This again, 100k. So I rang up. So I said, so you're going to qualify it next week? I said, well, I want Ricky May to drive. There's nothing against Carl, but I need Ricky, I'm a driver. So I go down to Ashburton. Ricky rings me up the night before. He said, you know this horse has had 2 chips taken out of the fetlock? And I said, no. And I said, no. And he said, didn't know he's told me that. And he said, yeah. He said, mate, I'm telling you now, this horse is no good. You're wasting your money. So I said, listen, Rick. I said, I've seen it go, I like it. I said, I need to find out these chips. So I rang up Sharky, and Sharky said, yeah, it has. But he said, Bill Bishop, Graham Sherman x-rayed it. Bill Bishop's looked at them, they didn't take him out because they were in a place that didn't, but they had to lock it up for 8 months. I did that. I said, okay, leave it at that. So anyway, we get down there, and Ricky's walking up, and anyway, he says, I'm telling you, it's no good. Well, Sharky says to him, I said, Sharky, I said, you don't mind if Ricky gives us the horse a good run, because, you know, it's a lot of money, it was 100k. And he says, he said, the only problem is it's no good in front. And Ricky going, yeah, I'll tell you. So anyway, well, it broke the New Zealand record. It was phenomenal. Yeah. So then I rang up Bill Bishop and I said, Bill, I want you to vet. He didn't do my vet work. I said, I need you to vet the horse, but I need to ask about it first, about these chips. He didn't have a clue what the horse was. Right. So I said, I'll have x-rays for you. So he can't remember Sharky and all the rest of it. So he's got the x-rays up in the air. He says, oh yeah, I remember now. And he said, yeah, I don't know about that. So we'll go and do the cardiograph. I said, we'll do a cardiograph before we do anything else. So he's down and he's got his glass at the end of his nose and he's looking up, and then he says, can I have a share in the sauce? And I said, is the heart that good? He said, yep. Right. So, yeah, and Johnny was there. Johnny drove the pace this day. He drove the pace and I drove it. And all we wanted to go was 1.5 miles and 3:25 half and 5, and couldn't do that. It was an awful track with her.
Well, she won her first date and obviously won that cup. Taylor Mile, Messenger. Yeah, she beat good horses too, like Aiden's Dream. And the cup she won, she beat Justin Excuse. He'd won the previous year.
Yeah. Should have won the Auckland Cup, you know. Yeah.
A couple other horses that race at cup class that, well, Franco Nelson could have won a cup.
Should have won a cup. No, held
beaten
up
by a great mare.
Great mare, held up by Jared Love's 4th cup. Right at the last minute, Johnny just had to. He thought he was going to hit the wheel. He's going that easy, you know. If Jared Love had gone another few more strides, he would have just peeled up beautifully. I think he would have won it, but you know, Classy Brigade, stiff. Stiff in the cup.
Three Kaikoura Cups, including one at Addington, you know, like
Panky's Pacer, I thought he was.
Panky's Pacer.
He should have won a cup. He had his heart fibrillated in the cup. Look, I've only won the 1 cup, but I reckon I've been unlucky on, 2 of Master. I'm probably unlucky 4 or 5 other times, but hey, everybody is. There's always
You've had some great owners. You mentioned some of them already. The Newmans obviously have been with you for so long. You got a Group 1 for them, Tyrone Eros.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
So was that their first Group 1?
That was their first ever. Scotty never won one.
Wow.
Yeah. I was trying to think about my career and why we're going so well now. And, of course, it's buying these ones at Yearling Sales and the people that are breeding them, you know, and been given some special ones to train on the beach, you know. But, you know, like Colin here with his way things are working out with him, and the Newmans with their massive breeding program they're doing. And then we go into sales and buying a lot more. Because, you know, got to remember, Ross has only ever bought 1 from sales normally. Sometimes twice, mainly 1. So, you know, in the last 20 years when we started together, it's hard to think you're going to get with 1 horse only a real top horse. You know,
and you got one with them too, didn't you?
Yeah.
Got the chocolates.
Got the chocolates, but we've had some really good horses over the years that have won nice races for us. And Ross just loves racing his horses, you know. But back in the day, you know, it was we never did all that sort of thing. So it sort of graduated from there where we built a whole different sort of...
Well, it's a whole different structure.
Structure now we're doing, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so we started off just as a family of Dad and me and Ken McDonald, really, and my mate Birdie, and then eventually, you know, things changed and away you go. Dobby came on board, and then after Dobby, you know, we just sort of ticked along quietly until we headed to the beach.
Yeah. Remarkable. Yeah, Ross and Angela Gordon, they've been with you for a long time. Yeah. Now, you mentioned before, no, bugger trotters, I don't train trotters.
I sort of said along, I remember saying to Al, I said, listen, Al, he said, you mind if we send it to Pat? And I said, look, great idea, mate. He's next door. He's got all those lovely roadsides, and I don't have any trotters. Nobody gives me a trotter anyway.
But Sunday Sun, what a remarkable horse.
Yeah.
He wasn't always...
Oh, no.
Your favourite, because I remember the frustrations you went to, particularly as a 3-year-old, but even he lined up in Cup Day free-for-all and you were trying to get him back trotting because he kept breaking in his races and he broke that day, and I remember you just shaking your head saying, I don't know what we're doing. Well,
you see, it was a real great patch. As Johnny came up with the 2 poles which really turned him around, because he always said when he turned his head slightly he'd lose his rhythm. But as a 2-year-old, he's won at Ross out and did a lot with him because he used to put the boot in something terrible, and Howdy used to...
Was he the horse that didn't have the crop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was going to win his first race easy, and he was out by 8 or 10 lengths, and he just dropped his head and galloped. And then even when I didn't have much to do with him until he came up as a 3-year-old, and Johnny said to me one day, he said to me, watch him, Dad, because he can put the boot in at even at top flight, which is a bit unusual. And I was out there and was working him, and we're sprinting down the straight, and holy moly, did he let go. And he had no reason, and he started booting and booting. I thought I was going to get kicked out of the cart, and I didn't. I couldn't believe it, out of the blue. And he didn't win the Derby up here, but he went phenomenal. One night was Andre drove him, and he went phenomenal, and his ability was always
he
there.
got on that run, you know, that 4-year-old run, which ended in a harness duels, but he came up here and he won everything. I think he ended up with a dozen or so Group 1s. There's one that stands out, his epic battle with Muscle Mount.
Oh, that was one of the greatest ever.
I mean, I know he went 356 the year before beating another horse of yours, but that was a race for the ages, because he was beaten, he was gone.
He had beaten for all money. Muscle Mountain was, you know, was a super trotter, as we all know, but no, he was all done that day. Couldn't believe it. I thought he was beaten because I was just this side of the winning post, and to come back and win that was just shows you what a gutsy horse he was, you know. And he was one of those horses, Greg, which is, you know, probably over all the years I've trained is a wee bit unusual. When he was dead right, he was unbeatable, but if he carried a smidgen of soreness, even though he was tough, he couldn't handle it, you know. And like the master who would handle pain like you've never seen, you know. And a lot of my great horses could do that, you know, but not him.
Robert, you've always had great staff and great workers, and Reece Fenton up here now these days, Reece and Penny, and obviously the likes of Craig Edmonds, who had a huge part to play in Sonny's career, shoeing wise. And, you couldn't have done it without those sort of people. But your son Johnny, he's a remarkable horseman. Has he always had that work ethic?
Johnny has, right from a little fella. When we were at Broadfield, Greggy always wanted to be with me at the stables. You know, he used to be at one gate watching the horses work and then charge round to the next gate. And then as soon as the last horse worked, I was always conscious of him being under, you know, he's only 3 or 4 or 5 years old, not even 5, just walking around a horse at the wrong time. So once the last horse's work, he was over. And then even he had his little horse called Buster Musician, which is a tiny little Welsh pony that was a champion jumper. And we broke him into the cart, and it was Johnny's horse, and eventually it was Dexter's horse. You know, and he sort of learned, he drove it all the time, he loved it, you know, he'd come and brush it up, and every afternoon it was in the cart, and Saturdays and Sundays, and he actually had Dex, I reckon Dex about 3 or 4 when Johnny had him in the cart driving with him, and then eventually Dex might have been 4 or 5, and he's sitting in the cart by himself. And it's all through Johnny. Johnny did a whole lot with him. And so by the time, and he knew the horses, every horse in the place, and I had Darren de Filippi working for me at the time, which was probably one of the hardest things I think that's ever happened to you know, of course, to his mum and dad and Mandy and that, and then anybody in the game. It affected us all.
He was like another son to you, wasn't he?
Oh, he was a super. He was so good to Johnny and Dexter. He was amazing, Darren. Had this wonderful nature, and always a willing kid. I remember Darren from the time he was 7 or 8 at anywhere he went at the races and that. He was just such a willing young man and beautifully mannered. Everybody was Mr., you know. So anyway, so we had a few horses there at the time, and he was going to turn into a super driver like his father, because Cole's probably one of the best ever. And Johnny, we were at the trials one day, it was 6 or 8 horses, and we came back and all the horses were in fed, and I think Johnny might have been 8 at the time, and he'd gone out and he knew every horse, and he brought them and made all the feeds up, put them all in their right stalls. The feet were all polished up, oiled, and, you know, just like that, right from the little fellow. So he's been a real worker. He's been organised and a real horseman too, you know. So
his driving now, and I mean, he drove 7 the other day at Addington. You trained 7.
Yeah.
He has, alongside Blair Orange, become the go-to drivers in not only Canterbury but wherever they drive.
Yeah, Johnny's always been a great driver, and a lot of people think he lived in, you know, the shadow of Dex, his younger brother, but Johnny was good from the get-go, really. Early days, it took me a little while to get the confidence, not Ross or anybody, but when Dobby started, me the confidence to get someone like Dobby to let him to drive the horses. But once he did, he was good. But, you know, he's always been a good driver and super judge of pace. I've always said to him, Johnny, you're a great judge of pace, and the strength of winning races is being able to lead up and control the races. I mean, you take luck out of play, bad luck out of play. So no, he's always been good, Greg.
Now, if you reckon Johnny was always good, Dexter wasn't always good, and some of the people he worked for in the early days said he had ability, but they didn't think he was going to become a 10-time premiership winner and a superstar in the States. Tell me a little bit about Dex as a young man.
Well, I think I'm slightly different than that, because I thought he was always going to be good.
Right.
Yeah, Dex's first experience was honestly with Johnny being teaching him, and I'll say it to anybody, Johnny taught him everything, really. And so when he was 10, I just got back in the game, and I had a horse called Panky's Pacer that, you know, was a rogue, and I mean a real rogue. I think Brian Amira trained him at the time, and John Hayes' son worked for him. He rode him a lot because...
was that Michael?
Michael, yeah. Yep. He rode him a lot because he was sort of uncontrollable. So when I got him, he was, if he bolted, and you were just a passenger. I'd done, obviously, beach training with Master, and before Master with National Glory, and I did love going to the beach. So I decided to take him, and had another horse called Shalani Storm. It was a little bit similar too. I got him from Frank Kearney's as a maiden. So I started going to the beach at Spencer Park. And I very quickly broke the habit of him bolting, because I went into the sand dunes or into the sea. And when he used to take off, you know, he was a smart horse. He only did it once or twice, and he realised it wasn't a thing to do. So then I decided when I was getting them ready to race, I wanted a driver, and Dex put his hand up. And he was only 10 years old. And I said, look, Dex, these two horses are not great horses, buddy. I said, and he said, no, I'll drive them. So anyway, he did. He came down to the beach one day and he handled a package pacer like a toff, you know. And it's funny, he was always good, except I always made sure I warmed up 200 metres apart, because if you warmed up together, that'd be hopeless. So I took Shalani Storm this day, after about a month of going to the beach. And I always said to Dex, now Dex, if you get into trouble, you got two choices, left or right, sand dunes or sea. Anyway, this day, Shalani Storm was playing up, so I went straight to sea with him, and for a wee while, and brought him back out again. Now, they used to sort of buck and boot and sort of carry on, so and they stopped straight away. And then I forgot about Dex coming along with Panky. And next minute he comes past me, he's out the back, and he said, I can't hold him. And I said, take your pick, buddy. And he went straight into the sea. And I mean, he was flying. So I pulled up Shalani Storm, and I'm thinking, oh, he's gone, and the water's going everywhere, and he was so small I couldn't even see if he's still in the cart. And I must have been shaking, because I was about half a mile behind, and he disappeared right up to the mouth of the river. And all the white baiters were there at the time. And it was up the Ashley River, and the Waimak River, and they were laughing their heads off, because he must have been telling them a story, and he was drenched. he went in. So I remember coming home and saying to his mother, I said, boy, oh boy, I said, I think this kid can handle a horse. And, you know, right from that day, he could drive a horse. And when we started training together, as Johnny was working for me at West Melton, and Dex became, I think he was about 13 at the time. But, you know, remember Dex was only small, Greg, he was tiny. So I never gave him a rough horse to drive, or a horse that pulled hard, because he wasn't a big lad. And then Johnny said to me one day, he said, Dex always beats us in every track week, Dad. And I said, yeah, I know, Johnny, but I give him the good horses, mate. But he said, tell you what we'll do, we'll give him an average horse this time, and we'll see how he handles it. So I told Dex, I said, listen, Dex, this horse here, we're thinking of not carrying on with him, because I said, he puts a rough stride around the turn. So I said, when you drive him today, I said, you've got to watch around the last bend when we sprint up. And I said, just stand behind Johnny and I, because I said, he's not smart enough to come out and go 3 wide, or, you know, come between us. So halfway down the straight, all of a sudden there's a whoosh, and he's off and gone, straight past us. Johnny looked at him and he said, what happened there? And I said, I don't know. So I said, God damn, I said, I don't know that else could do that. So he pulled up, and I said to Dex, how was he, mate? He said, yeah, good. I said, oh, I said, he's real good. I said, what about around the turn? He said, yeah, you're right. Well, you said he put the rough stride, and he said, I just nursed him for a couple of strides and he felt good. And I said, I know you said not to pull him out, but he said, he was travelling that good. I just pulled him out and let him roll. And he said, he felt great. I said, oh, so that rough stride, you'd have to grab him right up. He said, no. So from then on, Johnny and I just did the same, and we qualified, and a couple of weeks later he won 5 races.
Right, remarkable.
Yeah, so I knew,
I
knew. So I knew from day one that, you know, that, and I know as a father you think your children are all the best, but I did know that he had something special as a driver. And, you know, as you know the story of Dex, he went over, Tim took him up to Tony's, and he got kicked out of the cart there one day up there, and didn't end his confidence. Then he went across to the Innerdoms, were they?
Went to Australia, yeah.
I think they were in Tassie, were they?
They're in Tasmania.
Yeah, I think so.
Tribute and 4 Reel.
That's right, yeah. So then the phone call comes.
I remember Tim saying he was blooming good around them.
Yeah, good around the horses, yeah. And he's only still small, of course. He's only, he wouldn't have been 50 plus kg. So anyway, and only tiny as well, height-wise. And then so... Didn't he end up at Andy Gaff's? Yeah, well, yeah, so the phone call comes for me to tell his mother that he's not coming back. And I said, Jex, I said, you know, like,
How did Rose cop that?
Well, she just said, I said, look, well, he wants to be in the horse game, because we actually didn't allow Johnny to go in the horse game for starter. He became a builder. We wanted him to have a trade, and that's before he had his bad car crash. And once he had his car crash, he fractured his ring pelvis in 3 places. And the people he worked for said, look, he's not going to have that strength to be lifting and building and climbing all the time. So we let him, and he came and worked for Barry Purdon for 2 years. So with Dex, I said, look, to his mother, I said, look, Rose, I said, it didn't work with Johnny. He just loves the game. So his mother said to him, who's he going to work for? And I said, well, Gavin Lang, he wants to work for. So he went to Gavin's for 3 months, and he got an offer from Andy Gaff to go and work for him and Kate. And he said, I get on really good with the Gaffs, and he said, you know, I can live with them, and we go to the movies together and blah, blah, blah. And he's still only young. He's only, you know, 16, if that. Might have been 15 or 15, I think. And so he went from Gavs to Andy's and never looked back. And then Cran rang up one day to get him to come over and work in New Zealand. And I said to Dex, Dex, ask Andy what he thinks you should do, because he's been so good in giving you drives, and also with Andy, and I think I've talked about you, Greg, he's the most amazing, he's a great studier of horses, because he can tell, and when Dex started driving, he could tell Dex what every horse in the
Well, he doesn't
race.
drive the horses.
No, he studies them a lot, obviously, and he watches them a lot, because he could tell Dex what every horse in the race could do. And anyway, which is a pretty good art to be able to do. So anyway, I said, ask Andy what his thoughts are, and Andy gave him great advice. He said, Dex, he said, if you want to make a career of your career, if you're going to stay 5 years in Australia and try and cut your teeth, then go home now. If you're going to try and cut your teeth in Australia, he said, stay. But he said, even in 5 years, you want to go home now. And he said, you know, you couldn't get a better man in Korea. And so it was great advice.
Yep.
So he came home, and as we know, he made the wrong decisions a few times. He was living with us at the time and used to beat himself up, and I said to Dex, look, it happens to everybody.
Recently you joined the 2001 club, a club that only has Purdens in it.
Yeah.
And we mentioned before that time you spent in hospital, and Michael Pittman got past 2000 recently too. That must have seemed an awful long way away in the early 70s.
Yeah, it did, Greg. Since we've gone to the beach, it's exploded.
It's made
it has.
A huge difference. Got the Chocolates was the horse that got you 2000.
Got the Chocolates was one that got me 2000, named. Beautifully named. You know, but you know, I went back to you know, when I started off into how it is now, and when I went through, got the Champ Master, and before I had him National Glory. Beach training I loved. Yeah. I loved the beach training side of it. In fact, I tried to buy that property where we are now before Davey. And if it were, and somewhere down there is one gumboot, and that belongs to me, because it was during the middle of winter, and there was two old Smiths owned the place, and I went through the paddocks and pulled my foot out, and my gumboot was
still an old gumboot.
So when I turned around, it was gone.
It was gone.
It was, you know, it was so wet. Anyway, I didn't want to sell it at the time, and then when Davey bought it, he's turned it into what it is now, which is, and Kath have done an outstanding job. But the beach training is wonderful, and by going there, you know, we took our team of horses, which was quite nice at the time, and then we picked up horses, you know, along the lines that needed beach training, like Franco Nelson and various horses like that. And the other thing, Greg, I think a big part of getting those 2000 winners, I've had phenomenal staff. And also, and I think I learned it off Jim, more so than anybody else. Jack Smile was a bit different. He liked to do everything himself. But when I went to Jim's, he was completely different, because first of all, you know, he allowed me to look after Bolton Bird, and we didn't train him very much. He was only a little horse. He was a rig, and he was only a little horse, and it took no training. You know, we used to run a half and 5, and anyway, once he got to the cup class, he won the junior free-for-all. He never qualified for the cup in those days. You had to have 10 wins. He just missed out. He didn't race very much because he tied up a lot, and he had bad feet like Master, so he had a lot of problems. And then as a 4-year-old, he won the junior free-for-all. Should have won the next day as well. Should have won the Miracle Mile, which was big in those days, the Pan Am Miracle Mile. Got beaten in nose and nose with 2 flat tyres. And then I went to Auckland for the Auckland Cup and got up there, and he ran 5th the first day. And I rang up Jim and I said, boss, I said, I reckon he's a bit short, you know, because I reckon I thought I was going to win it with, I came through, I was going to burst away and win it. Got beaten about a half a length by great horses. You know, Purdens had a kaleidoscope of horses, and Fortune Montesa was there, and just a super bunch of horses. And I said to him, I reckon we need to train him over 2 miles and step it up. And he said, well, why don't you give Roy Purdon a ring and go to Roy's? And I said, okay, what do you want me to work? He said, well, you ask Roy. So I went along and I said to Roy, told him the story. And I said, the boss said to ask you what to work. And he said, well, if I'd go 4:26, last half and 1 and sprint up. So Barry drove in front of me. I took him on the Tuesday and worked him that. I went back on the Thursday and Roy had a look at him and said, go the same again. And so I learnt the ability, Greg, to be able to, if you're away from the scene, which Jim was to not to want to put your order and tell you what you should be working towards, because you couldn't see it. So, you know, and over the years I had all these great, you know, with the late Bruce Wiley working, and Barry Neal, when they looked after Master for me, Barry took Master to the Bathurst Gold Crown. And we had problems, unless you got to be staying with Kevin New, and the track got washed away. And he was a horse, had to train every day because he tied up as a 2-year-old, and so we had to change. So Barry found a way of getting around there. You know, I was back in New Zealand because I was crook at the time.
So you never stopped learning? Never
stopped learning, and I never ever try. And I respect the horsemen I have working for me, and I respect their judgments. you know, and when Reese was looking after, and when Bruce Wiley travelled those years with Master, we were on a different beach every time, so I couldn't see what the beach was like, you know, or the facility was like, so had to rely heavily on...
You had to trust them.
Trust them. And the same with Reese when he was up with Mainland Banner, and the same now with Johnny. I'm lucky because Johnny, just that freak horseman that he really, and he is a freakish horseman, you know, his ability to gear a horse up is unreal, and get them to steer straight and run straight. Very Americanified, you know, the way he likes his horses, like they're doing it in the States. And then Reese up here in Auckland. So I've been lucky over the years, Greg.
It hasn't always been beer and skittles. You've had some challenges.
Oh, heck yeah.
You ran the TAB when you were out for a while, and you had your challenges there. You had a spell on the sidelines with a positive.
Oh, yeah.
When Master won a Kaikoura Cup in Jeff's colours.
Yep.
Colin drove him.
Yeah.
Any regrets, RJ?
Look, not really, because I've had a wonderful career. I think getting injured for a starter was changed my life forever. It's catching up with me now, to be fair. I've just had a new shoulder replacement in. My last drive, funny enough, was I came back driving in 2000 after the TAB, and I was working and helping Jeff out. And I had Pangy Space for just the two horses.
Is that where you got tipped out at Rangiora?
Yeah, Rangiora. I was right behind Glenys Shamil and Glenys Buchanan back in the day then, and gee, she was lucky not to be killed. The horse went down right in front of her, and she went down in front of it, and I went straight over top. And did my shoulder in, which I've had now just a new shoulder put in, and I'd only had my hip replaced a year earlier. So, and I've now got an artificial knee too, and that was from that accident. So I decided, walked off the track, limped off the track, and I threw my whip I borrowed a whip off Ian Cameron. I threw it to him, and I said, that'll be, thanks for the whip. I said, that's the last time I'll ever drive. Walked past Pete Jones, muttering the same thing. He said, you'll be back. And I said, no, I won't. So I decided that was the last of it, Greg. So no, over the years, you think, yeah, things could have been different. I reckon now, because of technology, I'm a good mate Chris Ryder went to America when he was young, and that's mainly because his wife Nicola got a good job with her business she was with. Chris has been like me with his dad over there at PK to America, but the American scene's great now, and with Dex doing what he's doing, I start thinking, oh, it would have been lovely years earlier, but years earlier to have been training over in the States. But the States is just getting going now. It wasn't that great. I mean, I always thought when I went there back in the day that when I got back to New Zealand, we were better off than them. Our grass tracks were phenomenal. Addington, one of the best tracks in the world.
So what does the future hold for RJ Dunn?
Well, I'll just keep on ticking along now. One of the big things now is I manage all the business. So Johnny is the key pin to our business, and his wife Jenna, she's outstanding. And we've got a great staff down, down in Christchurch. That's where the setup is. With his father-in-law there, Craig, and the staff we've got down there, we've just got a wonderful setup at the minute, and things are ticking along really nicely. We've got a fantastic bunch of owners, and owners expect more now, and they deserve more than they got in the old days. So my job is to do two or three things. One is obviously to make sure that we respect all the owners and we give them as much information as we can, and they really enjoy racing horses, and that's a big part of it. Number two is, I think, with Entain coming on board, is to lift the profile of everything, including ourselves. And actually, we were just talking the other day, Rob, my partner, and I were just saying about how we should start, getting some clothes in that brand Diamond Racing, things like that, because Entain putting a lot of money in the game, and I think that's what they would like and expect. So my part's more administration side. I do all administration. We don't have any bad payers. Virtually everybody pays. They're great payers, so it makes it really good for me and easy to run a business. I've got it pretty sussed, and I'm not going to do any more driving because my shoulder, when the bit broke a year and a bit ago out here, and a brand new bit on a horse and it just snapped, and I fell at the back and broke my ribs, elbow, and finished my shoulder off. I'm past all that. It's been good, and I've had all types of owners, and I've had mega wealthy owners, and nothing gives them more pleasure than winning a race, winning a trial. People don't believe that, but they do. They love it. And anybody in the industry, it's just so good that they can come along and enjoy it and just get that feeling of winning and going into the winner's bar, the Brecon Winners Bar at Addington or the IRT, and all these supporters we've got.
Selling the dream.
Selling the dream, Greg. That's what we intend to do. Keep selling it.